Ladies and gentlemen, we have some very, very upsetting news. I'm Andy Burkowski. I'm joined this week on Dialogue Wheel by Adam Corkindale. Yeah,
yep.
real
I was
name.
about to introduce myself.
No, it's okay. Kalli Lang, that you just heard. He's been with us for a while, and we have some very, very sad news. It turns out that Ryan Reynolds will, in fact, be Detective Pikachu.
Is it actually him? I heard the voice acting in the trailer, and it sounds like Danny DeVito.
Two actors that are often, confused.
Yeah.
No, this is bullshit. We actually had some unfortunate news this week in terms of what's happening with Dialogue Wheel, so we are going through some changes. In the meantime, if you're used to seeing our beautiful faces, that'll be put on hold for a little bit. I know it's upsetting. Everyone can't believe it. They're not going to see our faces.
I know.
It's pretty upsetting.
I'm sad.
Well, no, we're in the same room, so it's not a problem for you.
I know, but I can't see my face right now.
It's not good.
I know.
I'm telling you right now. So we're going through some changes, but you will have your weekly Dialogue Wheel. This week, it's only the three of us, and we've decided to really jump into the well-treaded pool of video games as movies. Now, Kalli, if I asked you just for the sake of asking, not that we prepared this at all, how many video game licenses do you think will be pushed into theaters in the next couple of years? How many video games do you think are planned to be movies?
Oh, gosh. Hopefully not a lot.
Incorrect. 61.
61.
At the latest check. And these are not all confirmed, but they're licenses like The Division. Yeah. Which is kind of interesting how that's completely died down. Devil May Cry, Deus Ex, Dante's Inferno, which is a fine game.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I don't see that working as really a video game movie.
No.
Like, it's already basically Constantine.
Yeah.
Starring Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
Beautiful Keanu Reeves.
Yep.
But other titles, Firewatch, imagine that as a movie.
I can't.
No,
yeah.
Literally, the story is told, using the video game medium. It's not going to be a good movie.
It's like What Remains of Edith Finch as a movie.
Oh,
it's just
There's
games
no point.
Yeah, games that seem to work really well are ones that take advantage of the medium. And I guess that's the same with film, right? Films that really work well take advantage of the medium. Mm-hmm. That's not going to happen in this circumstance.
Yeah, I heard they were going to do, I don't know, there were rumors about a Life is Strange movie. Like,
no, don't have that. No,
exactly.
No.
That's bullshit.
Yeah.
The whole game it's meant to be a game.
Yeah.
So that brings us to our thesis this week. Every week on Dialogue Wheel, we try to act like we have a modicum of education and discuss these big, great gaming issues, distill it into one thesis, and see where we all land on either side of it. And the thesis this week, very, very simply, video games should not be turned into movies. Now, on its face, it's pretty difficult for me to think of any video game movies that actually provided a viewing experience that is comparable to like any of the great movies of this particular year. You know, Three Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri, Florida Project, things like that. I've had comparable experiences in video games, maybe even more powerful ones. But yeah, do you guys remember any video game movies that actually touched a nerve?
Super Mario Bros.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, but in a bad way.
No,
what's the
as a kid, I loved that.
Okay, well, that's
weirdly
something.
enough, I love that. It's so weird. It's such a crappy movie looking back, but like, oh yeah. Mm-hmm. But like as a kid, I was like, every time it would come on Family Channel, I'd be like, yeah.
Jeez, how many times did you watch that?
A lot.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
A lot.
God damn it, Corky.
And that's why Corky is the way he is.
So yeah, that could explain a lot of what has made Corky who he is. But then where do you find yourself on the side of this? Considering you've just brought up a video game movie that is described as one of the worst ever made, and say how it was such a formidable experience for your childhood years.
That's as a child.
Yeah, well, guess what? Children watch movies.
As a grown-ass man.
Yeah.
don't make them.
Okay, but what don't you think that some kids should have that same experience with emojis or something close to that? Emoji Movie, one of the worst movies of the year.
God.
One of the worst movies, if not the worst movie of the year.
Yeah.
You had that great experience with this bad piece of art because it connected you to the media around you. Why do you want little babies to be unhappy? That's basically my question.
They're not going to be unhappy because they can find something else.
They can find something else?
They can play
something else.
Play
There's
the actual.
Exactly. Play the game or
Where are you on
they can
this,
find
Kalli?
another movie to be obsessed with.
Where are you on this?
Me, I don't think they should make movies out of video games. If they do decide to, then, find a creative way that's not just retelling the same story. Like a spin-off or, an extension of the story. I don't know, like, even recently, this is not really video games, but they've been making movies out of series like Death Note and Ghost in the Shell, and they're trying really hard to retell the story, and it just, it doesn't work.
It falls flat a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And why do you think that is?
Well, these things are made in different mediums, so if you're going to try and remake them, it's not.
And that's
not the
from
same
like
experience.
anime to, I think, is Death Note an anime?
Yep.
Or is it a game?
Yep, it's an anime.
It was originally a comic.
Yeah, it was a manga.
Yeah. So it's it's stuff like that. It's things that are already kind of a visual one-to-one experience. Whether it's you're reading a book, but a comic book is a great example.
Yeah.
We've seen the success that comic books have had
in
being transferred onto the big screen. I don't know, like, who do you think? There's something that Corky touched on there that I think might be important, though, and it is that connection for kids, that they can appreciate and maybe see video games as something that is more palatable if they can get like their whole family to go see a video game movie. So maybe I agree as like a critic now in 2018, looking at movies objectively, we haven't really seen anything that's breaking through that boundary. But if you're a child trying to convince your family that, hey, video games are still cool, there's something I should be able to stay up until 9:30 and play them, to see it more accepted by the mainstream.
Something went wrong.
Yeah, but
Oh, sorry, Google Home just decided we're at home here in the studio.
That was amazing.
I just said my point, and then Google Home said something went wrong.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm not sorry, Google. Go ahead, Kalli. God damn.
yeah, I don't know. Like, I get that. You're like, as a kid, you want your family, you want them to be into like the things that you like, because a lot of times they aren't. And when you can be like, oh, let's go to see the Angry Birds movie, and they're like, yeah, sure. It's really exciting.
Timmy doesn't hate me.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of the success of comic book movies a little bit, right? Because it's nerdy adults that have been able to say, like, hey, I enjoyed this. It translates to my niece, my nephew, my new baby that just came out, and I'm taking them to a movie theater, ruining the experience for everyone else. So that medium transfers to some effect. It's like, it's not even, video games aren't even able to make the financial success that you would expect them to.
Like they keep making Resident Evil games or
And games.
movies, but like,
well, the games are the movie.
you look at the numbers and you're like, why do you keep making them?
Yeah.
How?
Exactly, right?
Like, what is the point?
I think, if they decide to do a video game movie, like actually put effort into it, because I feel like a lot of times they use that. They just tack the name on and they don't really do anything. They don't make something, they don't make it special. It's just another movie. It's another like 60 rated movie.
Oh, it's another 60.
It's another
60
Yeah.
or lower,
Yeah, so I'm trying to see some of the positivities here, just because I love video games so much, and I really love great film so much. Moonlight last year made me feel the same things that What Remains of Edith Finch did last year, and they're so comparable, the experience, there's got to be a way to kind of capture that magic.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys think that if you are tasked with making the Firewatch is a great example of making a Firewatch video game, that you should really stick to the story and try to make that experience, tweak it just enough so it works in a visual medium? Or should it be a tangential connection that doesn't really touch too much of the Firewatch story
I feel
and
like
is very much a movie?
Yeah, no, the second one for sure.
Yeah.
I think let's see, if I was going to do a Firewatch movie, I would probably do it in the same setting and maybe show something that happened before. Like maybe even the setup of like, or someone else's experience beforehand, or maybe even like the story of the other character afterwards or something. But Firewatch is, like trying to imagine how they would do a movie. You don't get to see your character ever.
Never.
I don't think. You never see your character at all. And the experience of just you're living it, right? Because as you're playing Firewatch, you're that character going through this thing. You're sitting in the tower all day long. You can't show that through a movie. You can't show someone what it feels like to be sitting in the tower and only have one person to interact with and kind of being lonely, but not lonely because you're accompanied by this voice. And having a discussion with them. I don't know.
There's like Reese Witherspoon's Wild kind of captured that when she went into the wilderness.
Yeah,
but it's not.
Tom
it's
Hardy.
like you're watching her experience that. It's not you experiencing it. Whereas in Firewatch, the whole thing was about you experiencing it.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. It's not only about, because they can definitely experience moments of boredom and introspection and loneliness, even supreme loneliness. But you're right that when you're experiencing it, it's a different sort of reality because. We're not just watching it. I think we can all say as video game players, we become it at least a little bit. We let our minds accept that we are that character. So do you think that movies should try to do that, or just don't even try because that's what games normally do?
Yeah, don't even try because you can't do it successfully. You have to figure out a different way to take advantage of the movie medium and tell a different story that may be related to Firewatch. But I don't think you should be telling that same story again.
I think that people, the artist or director or writer, whoever wants to make the film, should work very, very, very closely with the game studio to create this. Like the new Tomb Raider movie that's coming out.
Well, that is great. So I'm glad you brought that one up because like we all just watched a trailer a second ago.
Yeah.
It is exactly the same as the game.
Yeah.
Like it has the same. She is swinging from rocks. She is yelling at these vaguely Samoan looking people, which is exactly the same as the other game.
Yeah.
And just trying not to get brutally killed in an interesting way. And also, what do we find out? That Square Enix is actually a big producer. They're in the credits for this game.
Yeah.
So you think that's a good thing?
I think that's a good thing. At least
they kind of have to be in the credits, right? Like
but
they can't just.
Ubisoft was for Assassin's Creed, but they're like direct producers.
Yeah.
Square this time around. Like it's not just here's our money.
Yeah.
It's here's our creative vision.
That's what I'm talking about.
I think that's good.
I think that's better than taking it in a way that just completely is nowhere near what it should be, right?
But when you say what it should be, that's kind of what Kalli said though. That was just how the video game tried to tell a story, because that's the one thing that we don't get in any of these, especially when you're doing Tomb Raider, an action-oriented game. A part of what makes Tomb Raider horrific is the million different ways you get brutally and I would think gratuitously killed and like molested as a woman when you die.
Yeah.
I don't know, like the movie, like it's cool that they're trying to do this, but I think that making this movie cheapens the experience of the video game, right? Because then people can be like, oh, I experienced it, even though I didn't. Like, you can talk about it being like, oh, yeah, I experienced it just by watching the movie, but you didn't experience it. You didn't go through all the things that Lara did because you didn't play the game, right? And the game was what was showing you the things that she goes through.
Yeah, you didn't kill all those rabbits and get those ore to make a new weapon.
Yeah,
which is honestly really, really fun in that game, which worked out really well. So that's interesting.
You didn't dedicate that time and the like actual, like putting your heart into the game. You go to a movie theater and you just sit down and watch it. And like, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing for movies, but when the story is meant to be experienced in a way that is literally putting you into the game, it's not the same.
Yeah.
But what about then, would you have the similar criticism for people that are really into comic books? Because a lot of people would say, hey, you're just seeing an adaptation of the Avengers story. You didn't read the 7,000 comic books that I've been getting since 1938.
Yeah.
Like, you can't appreciate why that's so important. Like, because there's identity politics with any of these things. Corky is wearing some... Let's let Corky do this one because he's a bit of a comic guy.
Yeah. See, I think I don't know what the difference is.
Yeah.
But there's a weird difference between like bringing a comic book to life and a video game. There's some weird difference that, you know, it'll piss off a lot of comic book fans that this moment wasn't in there or this moment wasn't.
It's not the right color.
Exactly. And
not like race. I mean like a purple dude.
Yeah. But yeah, there's always going to be pissed off people, but usually it like reaches a large audience that are like, yeah, I like this, like Deadpool movie, great. But yeah, it's weird that video games have not made that, you know, bigger. Yeah,
I sort of see what you're talking about. Like, I mean, okay, my personal
you kind of
I
makes sense.
don't like adaptations at all. So comics to movies is no for me. Any because like, why not experience the original medium? Why not experience the creation from the creator's hand instead of like seeing a redone, retweaked version in a different medium? I don't know. I'm not big into that. It depends. There are certain times when it can work, especially, you know, if you're telling a different part of the story in a different medium, then
if you never got to see this person, like Harry Potter, for instance, like we never got to see what Harry Potter looks like.
Yeah.
Do you think Daniel Radcliffe should be just another actor on the street, or should we have done that whole Harry Potter John? They literally have an amusement park for him now.
Yep.
So in your mind, Harry Potter should have never existed.
Yeah, like the movies, I don't know. Like,
yes,
you got the books. Go read the books, right?
Yeah.
But I also
you get it,
like
though. You get why people
Corky,
want
I do get what you were saying, how there is a difference between video games and comics being turned into movies, because I guess like with a comic or a novel, it's a very linear storytelling. So when you're turning it into a movie, you can be like, oh, we're going to try and retell this linear story. There's not much that, even though it is a different medium, like the storytelling is pretty linear. Whereas with a video game, it's about the experience and it's about actually controlling the character and making choices and stuff like that. And you can't simulate that with a movie unless it's a choose your own adventure movie. Like you can't simulate the choice making. Like you can't do Life is Strange as a movie because the choices are so important and the foundation of the game. Like you can't simulate that with a movie.
Just the fact that a player has the choice is important enough for you.
Yeah.
That's interesting because a lot of people that make video games, the gameplay design, they talk about player agency and the idea that we give players through little tiny changes the illusion of choice when really you didn't have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
The game was designed in a way to almost trick you into believing you did.
Even though the choice is an illusion, it's a part of that, right? It's a part of the experience, right? You're supposed to feel that there's no that the choice is there, even if it's not.
Yeah, so agreed. The fact that even if it's manufactured in a way, the guys at Arcane that made Prey really talked about this, how they gave you choices, but really they didn't based on earlier choices. It makes the choices seem more authentic. It's an amalgam of choices.
Yeah.
So that still happens in video games, but I think you touched on something really important there.
Yeah. That
as long as you give anyone the illusion, the idea that they can make a choice, they'll always want the option to. I think we're getting into psychology a little bit. That seems to make a lot more sense.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you guys think about like, because you're both on one side here, you're both saying hell no.
Yeah.
But there is like Detective Pikachu. There are other things that are like the celebrations of the nerdy and the funny.
Yeah.
How are we able to celebrate that in movies that don't have to be like $100 million blockbusters, but are just like a little fun thing? Yeah, well, okay. Go ahead, Kalli.
Actually, that's
you
a
could
good
say
one,
the
yeah.
full sentence,
Yeah,
not just
like
yell that out.
Well, I mean, Wreck-It Ralph, like you can celebrate it without ruining the stories of the other games and mediums and stuff, right? Like even Final Fantasy, like Advent Children, that was a great. I mean, you know,
I really like that. No, I like that one.
Best film ever.
I haven't
like
seen that one.
It's an extension of the Final Fantasy VII story, so I think it happens after. And yeah, it's a completely different story. So you get to see your favorite characters, you get to see them taking on another adventure, and not just like, oh, parts that I already played through in this game that are, because, once they turn it into a different medium, it's ruined because you're like, oh, they didn't do this or they didn't do that, or there was that dialogue line that they didn't say and that, screwed up the character because that was important to the character. So it's a lot of finicky things that you can pick apart if they try to do the same thing.
And right there, you became a comic book fan.
That's interesting.
Welcome to my life.
See, I agree with everything you guys are saying. It makes such logical sense, all of your arguments. But there's something emotional here. There's something heart here that I'm having trouble getting over. Because the idea of having something, I'm a little bit older than you guys too, that was not as publicly accepted in the mainstream, and that's to be fair, in the early 90s and even throughout the 2000s, video games were very much seen as kind of a one-off lights and ding, 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 pinball. The pinball game that people played in Windows 98. That was video games for a long time. Because games have moved into a way that have such advanced storytelling mechanics that can touch, in my opinion, humanity even better than most movies, I want that to be seen by more people. So a part of me, even overlooking all of the good points both of you are making, think that there has to be a way that this can translate so that I can get my mom to play What Remains of Edith Finch. So I can get the people who are so mainstream to experience games like this, because it is tough. We all play games, but I don't know if you guys know any people that don't play games.
Yeah,
it is a tough task to get them involved.
It is.
And it's a shame.
I guess I can see that. But do you really think that an Edith Finch movie would make your mom play Edith Finch, or would she just be like, "Oh, I already experienced it"? So
I think it wouldn't capture it either. I agree that the way we're doing it now is wrong, but I do think that we need to have like What Remains of Edith Finch on a marquee in a movie theater so that we can appreciate that a little bit. So they can want to play the game. Maybe it's something that you said about trying to tell one of the stories that kind of informs the rest of it. Just something. I want it the other way around than I think how the industry is working right now. Right now, it seems to be like, oh my God, video game developers are so excited that, movies want to be made about them. I want it to be the inverse, that movie producers are excited at the notion of tapping into the star power that is video games. That's what I think would work in this way. Will that ever happen? Very unlikely. I want you guys now to tell me at least one video game movie that you liked.
Kalli?
One video game movie that I liked?
That you liked. That you're like, oh, that's a good movie.
I don't think there are any. I think
Nothing?
besides, I think Advent Children's the only one I can think of that's all right, but even that's like a 70, maybe like a 69. It's not, the writing isn't phenomenal. I mean, all of Final Fantasy. I mean, I adore, Final Fantasy and the worlds and stuff like that, but the writing is never the best. I like it, but it's enjoyable. Advent Children was enjoyable to watch. It was fun. But I don't know.
I gotta say, I know it's hot garbage, but I love it. Doom. With The Rock.
Okay, wow.
I watched that as a child.
Doom movie?
Yeah, that's before The Rock was known as Dwayne. He was just The Rock.
He was just The Rock. It was after The Scorpion King, and it's a hot mess of garbage, but it holds strong in my heart. After that movie, I was like, oh, The Rock can't act.
And now we look in 2018, he's the top billed actor in the world. He makes more money acting than anyone else on the planet. So there's something magical.
Really?
Yeah, he's number one.
Oh yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, he's the biggest. He's The Rock, baby.
Oh yeah. My boy.
So I honestly, when I think about video game movies, there's one that comes to the forefront, and it's not a video game movie. So I'm kind of cheaping out here.
Wait, what game?
No. The movie.
Oh,
Jesus! The title is escaping me right now. Damn, it'd be good if I knew this before we started.
Yeah, it'd be great.
That'd be great.
It's Resident Evil. He's forgotten.
It's definitely
it's Mass Effect. I knew it. No,
wait. Weren't they gonna make a Mass Effect movie?
Yeah, they were, but they
I remember hearing that. I'm like, that's so stupid. It's gonna be
Yeah.
male Shep, and it's going to ruin the entire thing. Just
We
because
can all
it's
agree
male
on
Shep.
that. Yeah, could you think of anything that would be worse than having a Mass Effect movie? Because that's a game that's all built on choices. That's terrible. I'm thinking of the movie, I think it's called... Oh... This is killing me now.
Use your phone.
We got to do this. We got to look right now.
Use your Google.
It's that important.
Yeah.
That
Using
I need
the
to know
Google.
what this is. It's a Tom Cruise joint.
It's a Tom Cruise movie.
So,
Oh, I think I know
it
what
has
you're
Emily
talking
Blunt
about.
in it. Edge of Tomorrow.
Oh, Edge of Tomorrow. But
Edge of Tomorrow.
That's a Japanese novel, isn't it? A light novel.
Well, that ruined what I was trying to say, but I like that because it took a gameplay mechanic, coming back from the dead, having your experience, trying to die and repeat a level, a very core gameplay mechanic, and said, you know what? Let's build a narrative, a movie narrative kind of around it. Or if Kalli's correct, let's steal directly from other art that really worked well. So that, I think, might be like a bit of the magic sauce. Like maybe if someone made a movie about a character creation, you know, the character creators,
You're just sitting there the whole time watching them change their hair.
Black Mirror episodes are like that. I'm pretty sure we could find
It's true.
something that's close to it. I don't know. That's what I'm seeing. I want you guys to have the final word. What do you think would be the future of the kind of video game to movie industry? I am going very much for, I really do want it to be strengthened. And I'm hoping that maybe we can just get one or two really critical successes. If we can have some movies that really touch on the beauty and the writing and the softness. I don't know if it's possible. Kelly made some good points. But if it is possible, I think we need that for video games to have like their own Oscars, not the bullshit that we saw this year.
Yeah.
I think, okay, the steps that they need to take, or at least things that need to pay attention to are...
All right, Kalli's got her steps. Listen, movie exec.
Here we go.
Definitely figure out a way to take advantage of, you know, your medium, which is movies in this case, and figure out a way to tell a different part of the story using your medium specifically in a special way. And also, I think paying attention to aesthetics too is really important. Okay, I know a lot of people are really big fans of the Scott Pilgrim movie. You know, I was not.
Yeah, me neither.
For plenty of reasons. I'm a really, really big fan of the comics. But I think if they did the movie in like the comic style or like, and even told like different parts of the story or like later, it would be really cool. The Scott Pilgrim game, actually, which is based off the
It's a lot of fun.
That is,
comic, is really cool. The aesthetic is perfect. The music is perfect. You know, some of the, you know, the mini storytelling parts of it. It's not really, you know, it's not exactly the same. It's, you know, it isn't a separate story either, which is, you know, usually I'm like, but they do it in a way that it's not right in your face and it's not that important. And it's just about like the experience and the aesthetics and playing the game. And that was fun. But yeah, the aesthetics and taking advantage of your movie medium and telling the story in a different way.
Well, we are on two different paths because I'm just going to say, please stop right now.
Just end it.
Just
You think
end
needs
it.
to
Just
stop?
after these 61 movies, because I don't want anybody to lose their jobs.
Stuff out
See,
there,
no one
2018.
loses their jobs.
Yeah.
They stay and stay silent because, you know, they're making this really shitty movie, but they can't say anything because they need to get their paycheck.
Listen, everyone's got
I mean,
babies.
that's
Exactly.
what I'm pretty
You got
sure that's
babies
what
to
happened with Avatar: The Last Airbender. Like, there's no way that someone wasn't making this movie and being like, "This is garbage." Like,
It's weird there's not that moment there.
Yeah.
Or like Bright. I don't know if you guys saw it on Netflix.
Yeah.
It's the racist vehicle of Will Smith that was on Netflix. It is one of the most atrociously offensive movies you've ever seen. I'm really surprised someone didn't just look and be like, no, we can't do this. Like, this is, we're going to get destroyed.
Yeah.
We can't do this. All right. So let's end it off with that. We can't do this. Thanks again to the team, Dialogue Wheel.
no
Keep
more
listening.
Resident Evils.
No more Resident Evils.
No more.
End them right now. And please listen to us every week on iTunes. Of course, it is available here on YouTube. If you haven't checked it out, go to Video Game Sophistry on YouTube. Just type that in and you'll see all of our work. My little puppy is crying, so I got to deal with it. Remember, folks, to bleed for your art.
Without a doubt, the worst episode ever. Rest assured that I was on the internet within minutes, registering my disgust throughout the world.